This episode of the podcast is sponsored by the Rabbi Binyomin Kamenetsky Torah Legacy Foundation, an offshoot of the Jewish Heritage Society of the Five Towns, an organization that Rav Binyomin himself founded with a mission to preserve the legacy that he built in the Five Towns, along with the legacy and heritage of Jewish communities throughout the world. After Rav Binyomin's Petira 5 years ago, his grandson, Rav Shmuel Kamenetsky, took over the foundation and created the RBK Torah Legacy Foundation, which is designed to preserve Rav Binyomin's own legacy and to spread his Torah, chizuk, and mission of promoting Torah learning and Torah building throughout the Five Towns and the world. The foundation is now working on publishing his writings, Ksavim, which will be released within the next few weeks as Sefer Chelkus Binyomin, it'll be 2 volumes, as well as currently working on translating the Sefer into English, and a biography of him with his life and lessons and those inspired from him, as well as many more works from him. The episode is being sponsored on his father, Rav Yaakov Zatzal's yahrzeit, to learn more about Rav Yaakov, who was the instrumental one behind Rav Binyomin's accomplishments. For more information on the foundation, check out their website, rbktorah.org. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Seforim Chatter podcast. On this episode of the podcast, I'm going to be joined by Rav Doniel Neustadt, who is the Rav in Pine River Village in Lakewood, and was a Rav in previous Kihlas and places before, and was an author of Mechaber Seforim, and was the editor of Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky's all his Seforim, Emes Yaakov, and we'll be talking about Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky's Seforim and his own Seforim and others. So thank you, Rav Neustadt, for joining me.
Good Tvach, how are you?
Good, Baruch Hashem. So let's start off. Tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and your background.
Myself, I'm here in Lakewood, Baruch Hashem, in Pine River Village. It's back to the East Coast after being in the Midwest for many, many years. I learned in Talz Yeshiva, and off and on, I stayed in Cleveland for the next 35, 37 years in different positions, in Kollel and in the seminary and in the Rabbanis. Then I moved on to Detroit. I was the Vada Rabbanim, the Yoshev of the Vada Rabbanim in Detroit. And then we headed back to the East Coast, where almost everybody else ends up, back in Lakewood.
Yeah, nowadays.
Very happy here.
Certainly. Okay, so you, like I mentioned, you put out all the Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky's Seforim. So what was your relationship? First of all, tell the listeners what's your what's connection to Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky?
My wife is the oldest daughter of Rabbi Kamenetzky, who is Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky's youngest son, who was actually the first one of the sons to be nifter.
And what was your personal connection to Rabbi Yaakov?
So, we had a very connection like any other, and he was very close with my shver, because he grew up with him after his mother was nifter, after my shver's mother was nifter, Rabbi Yaakov's wife. So they were just basically alone in the house. It was just them two. And they were very close, and he was very close to my shver's children, and we became close as well. And we had a very good relationship. How the Seforim began, it began like this. And when I was still in Kollel in Cleveland, in Tulsa, they made a Sefer Zakarin for a Baruch Saratskin. The Rashiva that was Tulsa was Nifter, they made a Sefer Zakarin. And they asked me, the editorial board asked me if I could get maybe a piece of Torah for Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, because I was a grandson. And so I suppose I asked Rabbi Yaakov, does he have to? He says, he never put together his Torah. He doesn't have any ready pieces to go Lutzfus. He asked like that. He says, anybody says, if you prepare it, take a chicken shtickle Torah and prepare it. And, if it's good, then you can send it in. He wasn't against it. He just didn't have the ability to, So the kid says, I took a piece of Torah. They wanted it on Chulin. And the Sefer Zakarin was basically, I think I was learning Chulin then. And I took a piece of Torah from he showed me his Ksavim. I went to his Ksavim. I chose a piece that I thought was pretty good. I edited a little bit, fixed it up a little bit, he didn't write with commas and with periods, and he was very short, and I added some words, and I fixed it up, and then I gave it to him to read. He says, sehr good. He says, good to Torah. All of a sudden, I got chiyus from the fact that it was like being put together. So good. So he gave his askam on it, and then I gave it into the Sefer Zakarin. It was printed. It was a beautiful piece of Torah. And after that, we got to be talking about it. This says, there's so much Torah. There's thousands upon thousands of pages of Torah that he wrote over the years, starting from the 1920s. and nothing was ever done about it. And once in a while, he gave in a piece of Torah to Amatayra to very different journals, but he never. There's no Efsha, for some reason, he all the years he didn't want to print. But when I asked him, and he got into, he was ready after 90. He was already 90 years old, and he figured that something has to be done. And he said, okay. And it was his idea to start with Chumash. He said, well, let's start with Chumash. We'll see what happens. So I got to the work, and I started. First, I took all the Ksavim and started working through them and putting it together. And I spent a whole summer with him, actually, going over it. I went to Monsey. I went to his house every day from wherever I was. And we spent hours and hours going over it. And that was the very, very first version of the Iyunim B'Mikra that came out in 1984, a long time ago. And, that was the beginning of it. But since then, it's been redone, and it's been added, and it's been added, and it's been added. And Baruch Hashem, it continues to grow.
So were you familiar with editing? You mentioned you put in commas and you read the words. Were you familiar with that process? That was like new to you.
I'm an Israeli. I was born in Israel. So I know Lashon HaKodesh pretty well. I know Avrit pretty well. I know how to write. I always know how to write. So I use them because I never really I never edited anybody else's work before. But I just did it. And since then, I've been a shadow ghostwriter for many, many people. So that's something that I could do. And I used it over there, and he was very happy with it. So I hope he continues to be happy with it.
Is that how it played out? Just was from that first piece that you asked?
From that first piece, right. That's how it grew, right. I guess maybe in the back of his mind, he always wanted to print it, but never really, I don't know, nobody pressured him about it. I don't know exactly the whole history before. And that's it. So since then, we've come out, we did the whole Torah except Tanakh. Tanakh, he gave to a different Einikel, and Eretz Yisrael took that over. And one volume has come out, and the other volume is still being prepared. That's a long time being prepared, but they're still preparing it.
So that
tapes, they have to listen to tapes. There's all kinds of other things that they go through Tanakh. So it's Mitzvah Shem. It'll come out one day.
That's what I was going to ask you. So first of all, the Al Torah, at least the first edition. Let's talk about it for a second. You went over that entire thing with him, so he went over the whole thing. He
right, but I have to be totally honest. He went over the whole thing. At that point, he wasn't already. He was already getting a little bit older. His memory was not as sharp as it was in the earlier generations. He understood, and some of the pieces I asked him to explain to me, he wrote extremely short. He was not elaborate in his writing, very didactic. And sometimes when he wrote throughout all of the Ksavim, I guess his mind maybe raced faster than his pen. A lot of times there's words missing that he meant to write but didn't write. So a lot of times you need to be able to put that in and insert that in and think, did he mean this, did he mean that? It requires a lot of editing and a lot of thinking exactly what he meant. So in the initial batch, I had him to help me, but that was just a very small part of it. That was just on the whatever Ksavim I had that time. And the real Mahadur of Emes Yaakov al Torah includes all his speeches and all his Mipi Hashmuz, which was much more. It's twice as big as the original version. And now we're going to make a Mitzvah Hashem, another Mahadur al Torah, Mitzvah Hashem, in the next year or two. And we're going to have more things. So we're going to have a fourth and final version of Mitzvah Hashem coming out in the near future. I can't tell you when.
So anyone who could wait should wait. So, I mean, what? So
we keep on reprinting the Sefer HaTorah. It's found Baruch Hashem in every Jewish house and every Jewish bris medrash.
Yeah, it's still a bestseller today.
It's still a bestseller, right? But and then it's going to take me a while until I finish this next Mahadur. It's not the only thing that I'm doing. I'm pretty busy. So, but I am started to work already on what I hope will be the final Mahadur.
So this new Mahadur al Torah is going to have, is it going to be newly typeset? Is it going to have new
typeset? There's going to be new pieces that I've found over the years, and mostly the Piyah Shmuel, of course. And it's going to be much more extensive footnotes because the footnotes add a lot to the caliber of the Sefer. So we're going to expand that, and we're going to bring in more. I haven't decided exactly yet the format. It's going to look different.
So. I mean, that brings up the Al Shas. I mean, was the next thing you did was the Emes Yaakov on Shas?
Right. Then we did after the Torah. The next thing we did was Emes Yaakov on Shas. That took many years. Yeah, that was took five volumes initially, And then, but that over many years. But now it was redone. Now the whole Hamisaka was put together in 3 big volumes, and much better, because it was that first version had in it some typos, and I found nuksavim. It's an ongoing work. You have to constantly improve in what you're doing. So this is the final version of the Emes Akav Shas, and it's much improved and no mistakes in it, Baruch Hashem, and it's very happy with it.
But let me pull you back a little bit to the first version. The original, the Emes Akav Shas, is that also his writings or shiurim that he gave? What exactly is that?
Mostly his writings. There was some tapes, and there was also some kisvei talmidim that needed to be redone, mostly on brachas. But most of the sefer, I would say 90% of the sefer is based on his ksav yad, and maybe 10% is based on tapes and talmidim's writings. But all of it needed to be edited because his writing needed to be edited. And we tried to stick to the original as much as possible, of course. The last thing I want to do is change his language. But sometimes you just have to reconstruct it. It was not written with fuss. You have to understand, he had thousands of pages of writings, but none of it was in any order. Every day he had 9 zdarim. He learned 9 things every single day. Torah, Nevi'im, Mishnah, Gemara, Rif, Rosh, Rambam, Tur, Shulchan Aruch, and that's Nachya. So on any piece of paper, you can have a shtick of Torah in Rosh Chulin, Rambam Avodah Zarah, Bereshis Chav Gimel, Moed Katan Yud Zayin, and then a different star. Sometimes in Moed Daf you put it in there. So there is no, you have to actually comb through the whole thing to find out what's going on. He himself, he was very meticulous about that. He made a mafteach to his own ksavim. Very interesting system that he had, because everything was numbered, so he made a mafteach to his own ksavim. It helped me a little bit, but ultimately you had to go through the whole thing, and it wasn't complete, the mafteach. And the mafteach was only for what he called his main ksavim. But besides his main ksavim, he had all kinds of other notebooks and different subjects and different inyanim. So everything needed to be put together, and it's a big job. Baruch Hashem, it's come out done.
So that's right. So that's very interesting. So I mean, what's interesting also is he was Reshiva, but he has like his stuff on Shas, and like in every Masechtas in the whole Shas. It's not like you're saying, it's not like Lamdash Shiurim there.
I love the Shiurim, but I broke them down a lot of times. And on the Shiurim that he gave in Yeshiva, on Chulin, there's a lot of Lamdash Shiurim, and a lot of the Vadim he gave on different Masechtas. But Basur, there's a lot of Lamdash Shiurim. There's Shiurim. They're built into the Chidush Maladaf. There's a lot of shiurim there. There must be like 50, 60 different shiurim that he gave as a shiur that are incorporated into the sefer. Maybe more, I remember.
Right, what I mean is, but did he give other shiurim that are not in the sefer, like in Yeshiva?
Oh, listen, I don't have access to the stuff that those days, not everything was taped, not everything was of course he gave. I don't know. There's plenty of stuff that's lost. And also tapes were very hard to come by. I didn't listen. I don't know if I listened to all the tapes that I had or maybe couldn't have gotten. There are still tapes. There are still tapes out there of him that haven't been exactly transcribed. The other Einikel who's working in Nach has a whole bunch of tapes that he's listening to. I don't know what's going to be with that. I don't have patience with tapes. But I'm just saying. But not all of them were done. But hopefully, I think we got everything. Everything that he wanted to print, he wrote in his ksavim. Everything that he wanted to keep for posterity, he wrote in his ksavim. Sometimes very short. Sometimes in the ksavim, you could have 5 lines, and then he can make a speech out of it that took an hour. Because in the speech, he was a great speaker. He was explained things nicely with stories, with things. And in the shtick of Torah, it's like 5 lines. So we had to expand it from whatever we had.
Right. Now, when you redid Shas, what went into that? Also, you mentioned that Torah has a lot of footnotes. The Shas doesn't have so many footnotes, right?
Some we tried. If a lot of times he was mechaven to shtick Torah from Nachmanim, Kashas, Dutzim, we mastered them. In the new version, you saw the new version, there's plenty of footnotes. On every page there's some footnotes, not as much, because it stands on its own. But sometimes we had to compare it to other places in the Ksavim. Everything is cross-referenced. It's all cross-referenced. And it's all, we reference it to other people that he was mechaven to, point out some difficulties. It's a job.
You mentioned that he learned like 9 things a day, and something else. I mean, a lot of listeners are probably familiar with this with his Sefer al Torah, but I was telling this before that he's very interesting. He had things on like timing and on Messiah, and I don't know every kind of funny thing. Yeah, diktuks. I mean, what's
that's Emes. He held his part of Torah. He held that's a lot of times he solves big problems that other people can't solve with diktuk and going through the proper seder and going through the trop. It's a tremendous chachma that most people don't master. But he did master it. I asked him once about it. He says in Slobodka, they looked at him as if he's, nobody else in Slobodka did that. But he was already like that when he was in Slobodka. And he says, if people looked at him like, he says, gehalten if Madna, he said. They thought that he was doing crazy things. They didn't believe in it. But Lalaisa, the Rishonim did it. The Rishonim are full of diktik. The Rebbe wrote a sefer diktik. The Ben Ezra wrote a diktik. So he was a very unique person, a very original person. And he knew that the amitius of Torah lies a lot of times in the trop and in the diktik. Rashi, there's many Rashis of diktik that most people skip because they don't know how to do it. But he didn't skip those. He learned those. And it adds a tremendous niche and a whole look to the sefer that really makes it unique. It's a unique sefer. There's enough there of other stuff there that there's enough to combine, different kinds of Torah. Yeah.
No, for sure, 100%. There's other stuff. But did he tell you why he decided to get into this, or something he was interested in, so he decided to learn it?
I think I know he never told me why, but I think because he was a Mavakish Emes, and if that's where if the truth leads in that direction, he's going to go that way. He's not going to ignore it. He didn't care what people thought. He cared about the truth, and if the truth is that this is part of Torah, has to be learned, and you can be mechadish on that, and you could clarify it. That's the way we should do it. I just think that his search for the truth led him to that area of Torah.
Right. Now, I don't know if you have any examples.
That was the Yaakov,
Right. I don't know if you have any examples offhand, but also the other thing I want to ask you is that, what was that process like for you to go through that Torah as you were editing it? Were you familiar with that kind of stuff?
A little familiar, but I had to learn some of it from new, and I had to study it, and because a lot of it I explain in the footnotes as much as I can. Probably could be done more, and maybe in this new version it'll be done more and better. And I got to, I tell you, it sounds boring and all that, but once you get the hang of it, there's a lot of interesting things about it. You see the structure of the pasuk. It's a whole Torah. It's a whole chachma, and it's not as boring as you think. It's pretty interesting. It could be pretty interesting if you actually pay attention and go through it.
On Shas, what about on Shas' style? Is it just standard like Chedushim, or is anything unique over there?
It's really, really pretty original. Sometimes he says things that others do as well. He didn't look too much in the Achreinim. When he was learning, he did the Gemara and the Rishonim, and then it was this. So, when he begins his Torah, it's like after everybody else ends. In other words, you really have to know the whole sugya, and then you can see what he's mechadish and then he's ma'aseh. It's very deep and it's very original, and it's very good.
So you mentioned Nach.
Right, but you really have to know the sugya to appreciate it. You have to really be in the sugya. You can't just read it. It's not something to read.
So you mentioned Nach, which you said someone else did. So I won't really talk much about that. But there's another volume that you put out that's not around anymore. I want to know. I'm curious to ask you about the one on Shulchan Aruch. There was a volume on Shulchan Aruch.
Not around? I don't know. It's not around?
I thought it's not around. Available in the store? I don't know. It hasn't been in a while, right?
It's not around because I don't know if it's around or not. I'm not sure if the store is having it or not. Possible. You have to ask what's his name, the Levitz. But in back in my mind, I would like to take another look at it because I'm very happy with all of the southern part of it that came out, but I added there hundreds and hundreds of psakim mipia shmua. I don't know if you ever saw that. And mipia shmua is a tricky stuff. It's very tricky. And there's a couple of things from the hundreds and hundreds there, 2, 3, 4 that I like maybe to take out. And there's many more that I like to put in. So one day, if I have karchas and time, I'd like to revisit that sefer as well. But at first I'm going to do chumash, and after I do chumash, maybe I'll look at the maybe. So I'm not eager to reprint it because I'm happy with it. It's fine. But you can always have a new look and a new deeper look. So maybe I'll get to that. Mitzvah Hashem.
So I can't say definitively, but I didn't think it is around. It could be it is. But
I don't know. Maybe Levitz says, I don't know. Levitz has printed it. I'm not involved in the distribution of this farm. I don't have, I don't care about that. It's not, doesn't interest me. So Levitz takes it and he does it with what he wants. I have no idea. It's out there. It's quoted all over. Every Halacha Sefer today quotes it. It's out there. I think it's around still. As far as I know, it is.
Now, what about, you mentioned the real last thing I'll ask you about is on his writings is that you mentioned he had notebooks also on random stuff. Were there any other like random topics? Is there like room still for a sefer on other minyanim, or it's all been in?
Yeah, normally he had a sefer, let's say in Sitivyan, he used to say a drasha every week. He was a Rav. So he had a very interesting system. He said it on whatever the daf yomi was on that thing, he tied it into the parsha, sometimes in a brilliant way. And he gave it like a shear on the daf yomi, then he gave on the parsha, but he tied it together. So he really had a special notebook for that. I have he wrote, it's from Bereshis until like Nosai, almost every week. And very interesting. A lot of times he talks about things that are current events that took place at that time in the Litta, was things that are going on in Sitivya and things going on in the world. It's very good. And I broke it down. It's all in the Seforim. It's everything there. And I took the Lamdish part, I put it in the Shas Sefer, and I got it apart, I put it in the Chumash Sefer. So I had it broken up. But he had like a special notebook for that. He had a special notebook for the drushes that he gave in other places. He had notebooks in a specific area, but his main bulk of his ksavim, which is 2,200 pages, is just without any seder. It starts from nowhere and ends nowhere, and it covers the whole Torah Kula. But besides that, he had a whole bunch of different notebooks as well.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay. So that's very interesting. Obviously, you said the Shas was recently redone, and the Torah will be done. Then the Nach, I don't know if you want to say anything about the Nach. I mean, I know you.
I don't know. Nach is very good, but it's not enough. I have it. I have all the stuff, but I don't have the tapes, and I don't have the ability to go through them. So there's another Enikim was going through it, and Mitzvah Shem will come out. I think he just discovered, he told me about it a few months ago, he just discovered 100 new tapes that he didn't even have before. So it's a very tedious, slow work that has to be done. And he's doing it, Mitzvah Shem. Rav Nassim, his son, had those tapes. When he was nifter, they found it in his house. They didn't even know. So now it's a whole, I don't know if all of them are nach, maybe there are other things. I don't know.
Interesting.
I'm not privy to it, so I don't know.
Okay, but the main
thing I have all the Ksavim Menach. I mean, I know exactly what he wrote, but there's so much more than what he wrote. He didn't write so much enough. He wrote much more in other things. He wrote, but not,
Right. So basically, I'm saying for the listeners, so the Shas one is available in 3 now large volumes. The Al Torah, you said it's available. It
was just reprinted a few months ago.
Now the other one is the
Rav is still available by itself. Shulchan Aruch, I don't know, but I think it is. And that's it for right now. Nach should be available. I have no idea.
And Pirkei Avos, for anyone that owns the Shas, Pirkei Avos is in there also.
It's in there also, but you can buy it individually because not everybody's the Shas is not going to be the biggest seller. It's not for everybody. It's a nice gift, but not everybody can learn it.
Right. Okay. So that's for Rabbi Yaakov's farm. Now for yourself, I mentioned this at the beginning. So you actually just put out recently a new sefer, a book in English, halachic discussions from Or Olam Institute, who's doing the English Mishnah Berurah. Those aren't familiar. It's so that's the blue English Mishnah Berurah that they did Halacha Shabbos. They're doing Yom Tovim now. I mean,
they're going to do the whole thing. They already have 16 volumes. They're going to have like 30 or something. But they're going to do the whole Mishnah Berurah.
And
wonderful work.
Right. Now, I also want to mention you used to have all this farm. I don't know if they're around anymore. The daily, the weekly, the monthly the discussion as well. Those are not around. So let's talk about. First I want to talk about. I'll get back to those. But first, let's talk about the Or Olam. I mean, talk about. Maybe you want to tell people a little bit about that Mishnah Berurah. I mean, what was your involvement? How did you get involved there?
My major involvement is that many of these articles that are published in this new book, I wrote them in the back of the Or Olam Mishnah Berurah. They have contemporary halacha discussions, and the Mishnah Berurah is not so contemporary anymore. So we have to update it to the 21st century. So we wrote contemporary halacha discussions about issues that apply today, and we wrote some more articles about it, so people can have a finality to the halacha. But they do a tremendous job in the Mishnah Berurah. It's not just a translation. There is a translation of the Mishnah Berurah, but it uses Old English. It's very hard to learn. This is a deep researched Lamdish work to explain the Mishnah Berurah. Actually, all the difficulties in the Mishnah Berurah, all the steers, all the difficulties in the Mishnah Berurah, they're all covered and reviewed. And they do an unbelievable job. And actually, the sefer can be done in Hebrew. It'll be a good sefer on the Mishnah Berurah as well, because it explains the Mishnah Berurah. So, but it does it in English, and very professional, very high level. And I had nothing to do with that, but I just had to do with the writing, the halacha discussions in the back. And after a while, it became a lot. So then I took all those discussions and redid them in a book format, changed the style, changed the order, updated the halachas, And now we have this book that covers the entire Shabbos from the beginning to the end, almost everything you need to know on a normal situations for every Shabbos. And Baruch Hashem, it's been very well received.
Maybe you want to give like an example. What do you mean by contemporary halacha problems? Like what it's first of all, we should also tell listeners it's like a question and answer. I mean, explain how do you give an example? Maybe
question and answer format, the normal questions that normal people will ask on a normal Shabbos. We don't try to go. I don't discuss, the international dateline. I don't discuss things which are unique to certain situations. We're discussing, could you use baby wipes, and could you, how do you, and it's not like it doesn't cover. It's not like the Mishnah Berurah where it covers like how to do kiddush and how to do that. It's only like questions that come up, halachic queries and situations that come up that people need to know. So it covers everything. How do you eat lunch on Friday? And how, what you do in Shalosh Shudas, like everything that a person needs to know as he comes in a regular Shabbos. And a lot of people are actually studying it at the Shabbos table and with their families, and they're gaining from it according to the feedback that I get.
So is it like it's on like Lamites Malachas, or it's more like the practical parts of Shabbos?
Well, it's not in the order. It's not in the order of the Lamites Malachas. The order that it follows, there's actually two books in one. But the order that follows is, it starts with Friday morning. So Friday morning it has the article, let's say, on Hafrashas Challah, okay? Then it has an article on doing laundry. Then it has how do you prepare the crackpot for Shabbos? How a regular Jewish house prepares for Shabbos on Friday morning. That's section 1. Section 2 talks about Friday afternoon, about things that are negate to the preparation of Shabbos in the afternoon, like giving in your car to the mechanic, or how do you prepare for guests, or and these things. And then section 3 is Kabbalah Shabbos, then it goes Friday night, then it goes like his names. It goes through the entire Shabbos, the first meal, the second meal, Shabbos afternoon, Shalosh Shudas, Shabbos entertainment, all these things. That's first book. And the second book covers specific topics within Shabbos. How do you interact with a non-Jew on Shabbos? Medical situations, grooming and body care. So it doesn't go with the Lamites Malachas. I don't focus on the Malacha, I'll focus on your activities. Either your activities throughout the Shabbos, or things that have to do with specific subjects within the Shabbos, like child and baby care, home and property care. There's different subjects within the Shabbos experience.
Right, that's what
but everything is a question and answer format. Most of the questions are what most people would ask, and they relate to that because they're getting an answer to their questions.
Now, in the answer format, you have the question, the answer. What do you go through? You just give a psak?
It's a give and take. I present the question, I present the halachic background, and then discuss what different positions are and what different situations are, and try to come up with some kind of a maskana of the place. Not always could you mechri the shayla. Sometimes you say it remains a shayla, sometimes it's machlekes, but usually we come up with some kind of a nice maskana. I think so. I hope so.
Now, is this something? Now, this came out on Halacha Shabbos. So are you now they're doing like I know I did it Pesach, they did other vams. Are you working on another?
They're doing it. Whether I have the time and the ability to help them is questionable. It just takes a lot of time, a tremendous amount of concentration and quiet, and a lot of things are going on. So I don't know if I'm going to be writing right now for them. I mean, they want me to, and I might, but I haven't decided if I am.
So you only have these articles in the Hilchah Shabbos volumes, not in any other ones? And Mishnah Berurah? I
wrote for them on Hilchas Pesach. I wrote for them. But now, last 6 months or so, I did not write any new articles. I can't. I'm now a Kailin guy also. I have a Kailin. I started a Kailin in my shul, so I'm there every day. And Baruch Hashem, I'm very happy to be there, but it also limits my time to do other things. So it is what it is.
Now, what's the story with your old books? You said are not around anymore. What was with
the old books now? Now, some of the articles that were printed in the old books have been redone and reprinted, and so anything to do with Shabbos that I had in the old books is here, but in a different format, updated, different format. Don't forget that these books were written 25 years ago. A lot of the literature that's out there today, a lot of this Seforim weren't even around then. A lot of the Rishon Zalman Auerbach stuff, a lot of the Roy Yasha stuff, a lot of this new Seforim weren't around. So there's major updates and changes in there. So all that has been incorporated there. So therefore, I'm not reprinting those books because I've redone most of those articles are completely redone and revamped. One day, Metz Hashem, we'll get to the rest of the articles. Maybe. But I'm not comfortable reprinting it because they all contain these Shabbos articles, and these Shabbos articles are completely updated and revised. So I don't want to go back 25 years. I want to go ahead.
Right.
So has that, but I'm not reprinting it.
Something else interesting, just in general, about those and about this one, I want to ask you about is that you have them in discussions, like question and answers. I mean, why did you decide that you just, I guess, since you started writing, that this is the way you write your Halacha Seforim? Why is that the way you decided? What's the reason you went with that? I
don't know. Derech Shaila and Tshuva. We see by the Seder night. You want to explain something to your child. The Chazal say, do it Shaila and Tshuva. When you ask a question and you get an answer, you get clarity. When you give a shtickle Torah, you don't get clarity. But people have questions. I know, Baruch Hashem, some people call me with some questions sometimes. I see what people are asking. I know what they want to know. So I try to respond to the questions. The books are written really on the questions that people ask mostly. And therefore, I know that what people are bothered by, and like to take away their, give them some clarity. So when question and answer format is a very good way to explain things.
Okay. So now you mentioned you're working on the Masiach Torah. I mean, any other Seforim or book, a lot of projects that you're working on?
Everything on paper, there's a lot of projects taking place. Lemaisa, it's another whole issue. I can only do one thing at a time right now. So right now I am working on. I'm hoping to beginning to get deeper into the work of Masiach Torah. Maybe I'll write other articles as well. I'll see. I don't know. It depends. I don't know what to tell you. If I would control my time, I would be able to do it.
Okay. Very, very interesting. Thank you. Okay. So thank you. They're very interesting. And thank you for joining me.
Okay. Thank you for having me.